Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barbin, and we got some breaking news here. I'm sure you might have already heard about this. Micah Parsons just got traded from the Cowboys to the Packers, so that's why Cowboys get pole position there. But I think the Packers won this one, so that's why the Packers get the shirt right now. Now he got, was it 4 years, 100 and I think 88 million, which makes him the highest paid non 184, 188, which makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, which apparently is what he wanted. So he got what he wanted. And I guess the question is, who won this trade? Does this mean, I guess let's start with the Cowboys. Does this mean that this is fully a rebuild now for the Cowboys? Because you had what the league and people around the league and fans, other GMs, everyone would assume is one of the top, I don't know, five defensive players in the league. You'd put him right up there with Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, um, Max Crosby, like those sort of players who all just got big paydays. And also Parsons in his prime. He's only whatever it is, 26 years old. So if he's got, it's not like guys like Garrett who are 9 years into the league and a bit older. Like Parsons is right there. This is the deal. If you were gonna pay a guy, he's at the age and at the time of his career where he has maximum leverage. He's pretty good. I know some of his detractors say he disappears in big games or his stats are piled up against weaker teams, but his talent is undeniable. He's one of these positionless players who can play edge, he can play inside, he can go back into linebacker. His instincts are basically unparalleled. He can play so many different ways in that defense. He's an X factor piece that any defensive coordinator would love to have. Um, Now, I don't know if you can build an entire team around just one defensive player, and maybe that was the thought in Dallas. Maybe this is Jerry Jones admitting he just doesn't have the team. Now, I said this on a previous podcast. If you have a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, like the example I was giving was the Bengals, that's why the Bengals were up today, you got to pay Hendrickson because you've got a guy in Joe Burrow who's proven he's Super Bowl capable. He's already been to the Super Bowl in his second year, and he's one of the only QBs who's beaten Patrick Mahomes in the postseason and also has Josh Allen's number in the postseason. So, in that case, if there's money to be spent on an edge rusher to make your defense even remotely competitive, and in the Bengals case, the defense was that it was Hendrickson. He had 50% of their sacks last year and he led the whole league in sacks. That's a case where you pay that guy. Now, in that case, they got a different kind of deal done. They paid him 1 year, and you could say the Bengals kind of won that transaction, but Hendrickson's totally a free agent next year. So he's gambling on himself. And the guaranteed money he just got was about the same as what they were offering anyways. So something like 30 million, 33 million. So he got the guaranteed money he wants, and now next year he's going to be a free agent. But that's okay. So that's just a tangent on Hendrickson. But that's the sort of player you pay when you have a Super Bowl caliber offense and QB. I think Jones maybe realizes this is not his team. He doesn't have Josh Allen. He doesn't have Joe Burrow. He doesn't have Lamar Jackson. He doesn't have it's not like his offense is built the way the Eagles offense is built. Like, it's when you stop and really think about it, he doesn't have Jaden Daniels. It's where are they on the list of QBs plus the power of the offense? Now, maybe this year it looks a little different because they have Lamb and Pickens, and it would be hard to say there's too many teams with a better 1-2 punch at receiver. Now, we haven't seen it go. We haven't seen how it fits together, but you've got two essentially unguardable receivers. So if this offensive coordinator can figure out how to use them, you would imagine Prescott's going to have one of his best throwing years and one of their best pass offenses this year. But there's huge question marks at the run offense there. We don't really know what the Dallas's run game is going to look like, and it wasn't good last year. And they've lost two or three a perennial Pro Bowl lineman off that line. So there's one, I guess one thought here is Jones just understood we don't got the pieces, and we're not going to spend money on this one defensive piece that's still not going to get us any closer to the Super Bowl if our offense isn't good enough. And also, with that said, Pickens is a 1 year rental too, because I think he's after this year, he's a free agent and he's going to be demanding top salary. And there's no way Jones was going to be paying both Lamb and Pickens wide receiver one money. And as much of a head case as people think Pickens is, some team is going to pay him wide receiver one money because he's got undeniable wide receiver one talent. Like he is a bit of a freak show. You just throw it up to him and he will catch it. So if a coach can corral his sort of craziness, he's got that kind of talent. So next year they were going to have to pay Pickens if they thought they were keeping him, pay him anyways. So maybe Jones is just looking to rebuild. So they get a defensive interior piece with this trade, which okay, I don't think that's like Kenny Clark. I don't think that's any kind of highlight in this trade. However good he is, it's not like they're thinking they just went 1-to-1 and or Clark is 80% of what Parsons is. An interior lineman's nothing like what Parsons is. Parsons is a complete X factor type player on the defense. He can, like I said, he's a multi position player. So I don't know. I guess now this all comes down to right now. You could say the Packers right in this moment won this one. You could say because now you got to say they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender just with this added piece, because one of the things the Packers needed was to bolster their defense, and you'd make the argument this completely changes the complexion of their defense. Do they have a Super Bowl caliber QB? Well, the last time the Packers and the Cowboys faced each other in the playoffs, the Packers kicked the crap out of the Cowboys. So you could say they're definitely a step ahead of the Cowboys, and they went on an improbable run just a couple years ago. So the Packers seem to have components that can make a deep run. So now this might solidify them as a serious contender this year. The other thing is this is a move within conference. So again, that's another move that would make me think Jones just doesn't think he's got the team. And all of this comes down to what you do with those 2 first round picks. If you don't hit home runs on both of those 2 first round picks, this is a bit of a mess for the Cowboys. So you either spend the money on a top 5 defensive player in his prime and just hope the rest of the team's good enough, or he knows the rest of the team's just not good enough, so there's actually no point in spending the money. I made this argument before. It's not like Max Crosby makes the Raiders any closer to a Super Bowl contender. As good as he is, you could argue that Max Crosby, the money spent on Crosby was wasted money. You could also make the argument the money spent on Myles Garrett was wasted money. As good as he is, what Garrett's been there for 9 years, that team has not even sniffed a chance at being a Super Bowl contender. So in 9 years, and now you could also argue the Browns is a disaster of an organization and can't sort out the QB position, but that's the point. The QB position is 10 times more important than a defensive end or a defensive, any kind of defensive player. That's why I brought up the Trey Hendrickson, Joe Burrow analogy or whatever comparison. There is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback in Cincinnati. It behooves them to figure something out on defense and to pay some money on defense to Hendrickson and strike while the iron's hot while they have Burrow in his prime. So I don't think any rational NFL fan would put Dak Prescott in the same category as Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, or at least the way Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have been performing. You can't put him in that category anymore either. So I don't know. Is this the actual rational move? It doesn't make Dallas better this year. There's no way anyone thinks this makes Dallas better this year. To me, this is just an admission that they need to get more pieces. Unless people think Jones is just nuts and this is him. It's more of a grudge than more of an ego thing. I mean, I just finished watching the documentary about him, and it's you could say that he'll make a move just out of personal spite, like firing Jimmy Johnson back when he did, which you had a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. Why would you do that? And then in the documentary, it appears it was all a personal thing and all of an ego thing. So maybe that was this again. That's this coming up again, and it's not rational at all. It's just Jerry Jones's ego, and he actually let go. What you could make the case he's the best defensive player in the NFL, or one of the top 2 or 3, and you could make the case he let the best defensive player go purely just on ego. And if he does have an ego thinking he can build this team, well, wouldn't you need that type of player? And then and then add to him. Like he's one of the critical pieces, like a key a defensive edge, and especially an edge that's got this sort of flexibility is one of the key positions. It's QB, edge, left tackle, and cornerback. Those are, you have to have lockdowns on those, and he has good cornerbacks. So but maybe he just understands he doesn't have the QB, or it's ego. Whatever it is, it's it doesn't feel like a full admitting we're rebuilding thing. Because if that's the case, you wouldn't have just brought on Pickens, you wouldn't have paid Lamb. So it's this in between. You have a massively high priced quarterback, you have a massively high paid wide receiver, and it just makes sense that you would solidify with what you could say is the best defensive player in the league, and then you just let him go. So now it doesn't make any sense having such a high paid QB and receiver, but you don't even bother trying to solidify it with a defensive player of this caliber. So what's the plan? Try to hit 2 home runs on these draft picks, or hope somebody else you picked is going to fill his spot. Like what is there that they think is going to fill this spot? How can any Dallas fan or just any observer of the NFL view Dallas as better this year, not actually worse for this move for this calendar year, and just moved a competitor, at least in the conference, not the division, but in the conference, ahead of them but now this guy's on the Packers. So, I mean, now this makes the Packers, if they weren't already interesting, just absolute must-watch TV. Obviously, Packers fans are loving it, but everyone in the NFL is going to be keyed in on the Packers to see if this was money well spent. And now the Cowboys, I mean, I didn't know what to think of them, but I don't think a whole lot of them now this year. And unless they hit 2 unbelievable home runs, which is a huge gamble, lots of times top draft picks do not work out. This is some weird in-between rebuild with an expensive QB and an expensive wide receiver, but then you're, banking on 2 draft picks to work out in Dak's 11th and 12th year in the league, and somehow that's supposed to all work itself out in the next couple of years. I don't know. I kind of feel bad for Cowboys fans. You've been stuck with Jones doing Jones stuff all this for the past 30 years, and he just cannot sort it out. It doesn't seem like a true legitimate up and coming coach ever wants to go to the Cowboys, and it's obvious. This has been obvious for a while, and the documentary just shed even more light on it. This team seems to be stuck because of Jerry Jones, and it's such a weird position to be in because he owns the team. It's his team, and he's the one who made the NFL. He very much stimulated or was the instigator to get to the NFL to the colossal amount of money it's making now, especially when you see in the documentary, he battled directly with the NFL for his own sponsorships. I mean, at one point, they were showing the Cowboys were generating 25% of all the league's revenue, but he had to split it with merchandising and sales, but he had to split it 30 ways. And I could see how, as an owner, that really irritated him. And then he pushed forward and did his own sponsorships. And now the Cowboys are the wealthiest franchise in the entire world, sports franchise. So include all of those massive Premier League soccer teams in Europe. The Cowboys are worth more than all of it. And a lot of that is really just Jones pushing and pushing and taking risks and pushing and fighting back against the NFL when they wanted to sue him for that. And all of the other owners being so stuffy and backwards in their thinking and, we're just going to share. And now you bet they all love the fact that he broke that ground, and now all of them are wealthier because of the ground he pushed back then and the counter lawsuit and the battle he put up against the NFL. And the reason why these deals are $180 million for a defensive end and $450 million for Patrick Mahomes, all of this money, you could make the argument it's all because of Jones and how hard he pushed and the battle he fought against the NFL back with those marketing rights. So everyone loves to be at the truck getting all the money, but we all rip on Jones for being pig-headed and stubborn. But you got to take the good with the bad with Jones. And yes, I'm sure Dallas fans are just infinitely frustrated with this guy. But all of this money is partly because, or in large part because, he pushed so hard and fought back against it and forced them into the future of 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 marketing, understanding this is a 365-day a year drama, and now you've got Hard Knocks for 20 years, and you've got all these different. Netflix is all in on the documentaries, and NFL preseason games outrank NBA playoff games, and the money for all of the players, the money's just going up and up and up, and then people like me, I mean, it's not like I'm making any money on this, but it's fun to try. It's fun to be involved here. And then there's definitely an entire media industry that's completely supported by just the NFL. So, take the good with the bad with Jones. There's this thing is as big as it is, and there's this much money largely because he pushed and pushed and pushed. But part of that gives him the confidence and or self-perception that he's kind of always right. And in this case, he's seems to, maybe it's an ego thing. I mean, we'll find out. Well, we're not going to know everything right now. I don't know that Jones will ever fully admit how this deal really went down and whatever Parsons' public statements have been so far. But as things were, and the way money was being spent on defensive players in sequence, Nick Bosa was the first to be the highest paid non QB, and then it just kept going. It kept going into Parsons, well, Crosby, and then not Parsons, Myles Garrett, and these big paydays for these the non QB highest paid play. And so, if you look at his age compared to those guys, he's comparable in age with Bosa, but the other guys that are getting paid all this money are much older than Parsons. Parsons is in his prime, and the way the market's structured, he's kind of in position to ask for that much money. And clearly there were teams that will pay it, and one just did. So here we go. I don't know what it's in the comments. Let me know. Did you think who won this deal? Was this just inevitable? Are you actually surprised this happened? Knowing Jerry Jones for at least how much we can know him through the media, is Jerry Jones doing Jerry Jones? Is Dallas just not going anywhere until Jerry Jones steps down? Which I don't think he's going. I don't think he's stepping anywhere until he just passes. So is this it? Is Dallas just cursed? They're just never going to get anywhere because of Jones. And what do you think of the Packers? Are they in the driver's seat now in the North? I mean, it makes the North interesting. I thought the Lions were clearly the favorite in the North, but this definitely changes the calculus in the North. So, one thing, Jones makes it interesting. I mean, the drama of the NFL is he's always somehow in the center of it, even when it looks like it's not benefiting his team. This is going to be the hottest story for a while. So, anyways, that's all I got for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's your Saturday versus Sunday podcast.